On today's Locked On Nationals, we are joined by Bobby Blanco from MASNsports.com, and we're going to get into how can the Nationals compete going into 2025 and what move will they have to make to get them there.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get to your podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And while you're at it, make sure to search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, including over on YouTube, and hit that subscriber button. Again, just search Locked On Nationals. We are joined today by Bobby Blanco from MASNsports.com. Our guy, Bobby, covers the Nationals for MASN Sports. Before we get into it today, Bobby, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Bobby, how are we on this Friday?
We're hanging in there, Ryan. I can kind of hear it in your voice. You can probably hear it in mine. It's just that changing of the seasons, getting a little stuffy, getting a little, I'm still wearing shorts and T-shirts because it's warm enough, but, when the sun goes down, it gets a little cool. So trying to fight off some of these late summer colds, early fall colds. But, we got like 3 weeks of baseball left before the playoffs start. So hanging in there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Nationals will not be in the playoffs this year, but fortunately enough, we're going to get into how the Nationals can make the playoffs this time next year. So first and foremost, I do believe the foundation is set. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. James Wood, Dylan Cruz at the forefront of it. CJ Abrams, who has a 2020 season, one of 5 Nationals to accomplish that feat yesterday. Dylan Cruz added another multi-hit game. So the foundation for the Nationals is relatively set, but Bobby, we all know the Nationals need to kind of make moves to get themselves over the hump. What do you foresee them doing this offseason, and will they make kind of a future changing move in the year of 2025, actually?
Well, let's take a look at the overall landscape of the roster right now. I mean, you've got your top 3 guys in the lineup, Abrams, Dylan Cruz, and James Wood. I mean, I don't foresee those guys moving around too much going into next year. I think you have your starting outfield right there, adding Jacob Young into center field. The rotation is young and solid. I mean, we can nitpick at the numbers right now, but I think you will gladly go into next year with the rotation of Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, DJ Hurst, Mitchell Parker, and then a 5th starter, whether that's Kate Cavalli, hopefully coming back healthy, or someone else. The bullpen, you've got some back-end pieces that are decent still under contract. You have a closer in Kyle Finnegan, albeit he is a little over 30 at this point. So how much more does he have left in the tank? Kind of like you were mentioning right there, like the bones are there, right? Like you can kind of see the blueprint right there. Now it's all about like adding small pieces instead of developing majority of the roster because it's already up here. So, I'm looking at the corner infield spots. Is Jose Tena the third baseman of the future? Hard to say. I mean, the offensive numbers are great in a short amount of time, hitting over 300, drove in 2 runs last night, exit velocity as we talked about. But the defense, I mean, another error at third. They're trying it out at second base at times, which is interesting. But, the defense isn't quite there yet. It's an adjustment period, I know. But, and I'm not saying a Brady House won't make errors when he comes up, but maybe Brady House is a better option there or someone on the market. And then I think you look at first base too, and the DH platoon is, someone like Andres Chaparro, the long-term solution at first or DH. It'd be great if he was. I'm not quite sure he is, though. So maybe you're looking to get a bigger bat. Maybe that big bat's coming in another corner outfield spot, and you move Dylan to center, and Jacob Young becomes your 4th outfielder. Yeah. And we could talk all about Patrick Corbin and what he hasn't done really over the past couple of years, but fans are going to be, I don't want to say happy, but he is leaving at the end of this year. you have to replace him. And the one thing he did do was eat innings. And so you need to go get another, I think, veteran starter that can either lead this rotation or fill that spot in the back end where they can eat innings while this young rotation, while the young starters kind of continue to develop at the major league level. So, some small pieces to add right there, but I'm starting right there. The corner infield, maybe corner outfield spot. We could talk about Juan Soto, obviously, and then a fifth starter, whether that's at the front line or the back line. And then, every team adds some small bullpen pieces along the way. So I think that's an obvious one, but that's where I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about this last week, Bobby. I don't really see the Nationals going after a big free agent at this point. I just don't. And the reason why I don't believe in that is because, again, this is an analogy I use all the time, but you can tell me Bigfoot is there, but I have to see Bigfoot in order to believe it. I cannot believe in this ownership group going out there and spending the money the way that they have been over the last few years. I just can't believe in that fact that you're going to go get a Juan Soto. Now, I will say this. Jorge Castillo, I believe, from ESPN did report yesterday that the Nationals would very much so be interested in a reunion with Juan Soto. And yeah, I think the Marlins would be interested in signing Juan Soto as well. And I saw people kind of really clamoring for that and being like, oh my God, it's going to happen. I want people to just kind of relax on that front. We will discuss it because it is a possibility, but still Juan Soto is going to be getting so much money from a team that just has a lot more money than what we do right now. So I want people to kind of slow down on that thought process, even though it is a possibility, I admit, but still, let's slow down. But as I was getting into, though, Bobby, I kind of want your reaction to this. I think the Nationals are more prone to make an offseason trade acquisition, like a big splash for whoever it is out there. That's what I could see them doing. And two guys you actually did just kind of mention here is Jacob Young, who is right now, I mean, you could make the argument that he is the most valuable Washington National on this team, and Luis Garcia Jr., who you could make the second most for as far as his full season goes. You could trade those two guys and also one of your top prospects, and you could get something pretty legit back in return. And I don't know who that would be at this point. I threw out the idea of Vladdy Jr. last week, even though I don't think that would be enough to get him to DC and then sign him, because that would be your ultimate goal. But I feel like the Nationals are more likely to make a huge splash trade than they are to sign anyone big in free agency.
So I'll take the opposite on that. I think they're more likely to sign someone. I don't think we're looking at the Nationals at a point where they want to depart from some of their top prospects and guys on the major league level, like you just mentioned. I would say that if they do make a trade, some of the pieces at the major league level are more likely to be shipped off than prospects. But that being said, like you just mentioned, I think there's too much value in Jacob Young and the defense he brings, and he's got a solid bat. I mean, if he's hitting above 250 in the 9-hole, I think you can take that. I think Luis Garcia had a renaissance season and has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt now and the trust to be the everyday second baseman moving forward. And I think it's because you just talked about all the money that they're not going to spend. I think that you have proven commodities at the major league level now that come at a low cost. So I think that makes more sense both financially and in terms of baseball to keep them than ship them off to acquire somebody else. I think you're more likely to tie it back into the Juan Soto deal. Yes, I agree that I think it's a little far-fetched that they sign Juan Soto. They should definitely try, but with the expectation that Juan Soto is going to sign a contract north of $500 million, you could take that money and spread it out and add pieces that I just mentioned: a starting pitcher, a frontline starting pitcher, a starting first baseman, maybe a corner outfielder, maybe a starting third baseman as a true placeholder, and build this team up to be competitive at the major level next year instead of just adding one superstar talent or shipping off major league talent that have already proven that they deserve to be here.
And those are all great points because you don't want to see the Nationals sell their prospects at this point in time, especially some of the top guys, but leftover guys or quote unquote leftover guys like Dalen Lyle. I could see him getting kind of traded off because the Nationals do have a pretty loaded outfield system. Maybe Robert Hassel III. If they really want to get aggressive, maybe they do trade their first round pick with Seaver King if he can really kind of show some decent numbers here soon. But we'll see what the Nationals do. They have a full offseason ahead, Bobby, but it'll be interesting because, again, this is a very big offseason for them. And more importantly, this is a big offseason for the Lerner family. I got to see it to believe it in order for them to really spend and kind of make this team better because they do have holes, but they also are not that far away from competing. So we'll see what they can do this offseason. But sitting here today, Bobby, the FredNats, they're in the championship series, man. So we'll talk about them. We'll talk about some of the prospects who have led them to that nice little championship series down in the minors in the Carolina League. But before we get into it, I'm going to tell you guys about our friends over at TonaI. And of course, for those of us who thrive on getting stuff done, including workouts, every minute counts. That's why you need TonaI and the smart strength training system that makes the guesswork out of working out so you can make sure you're making the most of every rep. When life gets busy, fitting in a workout can be stressful, and with TonaI, you can get efficient workouts personalized just for you and are available with the amount of time that you have. TonaI is the world's smartest, most efficient strength training system that helps get you stronger. Powered by AI, TonaI learns with every rep so it can deliver workouts personalized just for you. And it's like having a personal trainer at home with you, as TonaI will optimize every workout just for you. Right now, TonaI is offering our listeners $200 off your TonaI purchase with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's TonaI.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off your purchase. That's TonaI.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off your purchase. Now we get back into it with Bobby Blanco from MASNsports.com. Bobby, the FredNats are heading to the championship series, man. I mean, I think this is a very important stepping stone for a lot of younger guys who are down there. I mean, we've mentioned all the 2024 MLB draft picks that are down there. Caleb Lomavita, Seaver King, Kevin Bazel. Bazel is how you pronounce that last name, right?
I've been saying Basil, but
Basil, Kevin. He's really hitting the ball really well. So yeah. Travis Sykora, Elijah Green, Christian McCarra. I mean, the FredNats, they have a ton of talent. So I just think overall, learning to win at a young age, especially in your young professional career, I mean, it means a lot going forward because you don't want to get used to losing. You want to get used to winning. So I think it's really cool, man. What can you tell us about the FredNats so far?
I think that you hit it on the nail right there because every time I've gone down there and I've talked to the players, talked to coaches, talked to people in the player development staff, I mean, everyone acknowledges that there is something to be said about winning together no matter what level you're at. I mean, obviously everyone wants to win, but, I don't think the Nationals are going to hang a single A banner, championship banner at Nationals Park. FredNats will down in Fredericksburg, but overall, I don't think too many Nationals fans are too pumped for a single A championship. They want another World Series championship, but this is somewhat of an important stepping stone toward that because you have young guys like everyone you just mentioned playing on the same team, winning together, and knowing what it takes to win and growing together. And every player, coach I've ever talked to has said that there is something to be said, especially when you talk about all those draft picks coming in together as a single draft class, merging with guys that have already been here, meshing well. Ideally, I mean, it's not all going to be the case. All of these guys can't reach the majors at the same time, but ideally, these all kind of grow together, go level by level, and then make the major leagues together, and then boom, now they're winning together at the major league level. So I think a lot has to be said. I think it's very impressive what they've been able to do down there in Fredericksburg. They really took off after the draft, adding Seaver King, Caleb Lomavita, Basil, whatever we want to call them. Christian Vaccaro and Elijah Green were already mainstays there. Brenner Cox is having a strong season there, a draft pick from a couple of years ago, as they're basically their leadoff man all season long. And I think it's really important, too, to kind of know where all these guys came from. A lot of them are draft picks, but you also have Alex Clemmie starting game 1 of that first round series earlier this week. He didn't pitch great. I think he was charged with 6 runs in less than 4 innings.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's a combination of guys that were drafted, international signings, traded for, coming together. And I think it's a big win, not just for the FredNats, but for the amateur scouting department, the player development department, the draft room, all that stuff, international scouting, all that stuff coming together. And so it is an organizational win for the FredNats to be in this championship series. And looking ahead, Travis Sykora pitched last night. He was fantastic, like 9 strikeouts. And I think it was like 5 innings or so. You have to think he's the best starting pitcher in the minor leagues right now, especially definitely at single A. You have to think that he's lined up to start either game 2 or game 3 of that championship series. So, you have to feel pretty confident if you win game 1 that you're going to win the whole thing because you're going to have Sykora on the mound for one of those last 2 games.
Yeah, and as you kind of mentioned there, Travis Sykora, the guy just goes out there and dominates. It's like simple as that. Like, you can't really say much more. I can't remember the last time that this guy was like, I looked at the stat line and be like, oh, he had a bad start. Like, no. Like, this guy just goes out there every 6 days, dominates, and just goes home and does it again the next week. One thing, though, Bobby, that I've kind of been a little frustrated with this, and I actually had Eric Bach on, the play-by-play guy for the FredNats, and, I asked him this, like, why is Travis Sykora still in low A? And he was like, well, the Nationals do have a tendency to kind of take it slower with younger guys, and I do believe, and I'm speaking for himself here, but he did say, he was like, I bet next year you'll probably see him fly through the system. He's putting up similar numbers. And I think that's great and all. Like, I do agree with that. Like, they do kind of have that track record in the past, but like, dude, Travis Sykora should be in Double-A right now. Like, in all realm, like, he should be in Double-A. Like, that is where he belongs at this point in time, Bobby. So does that frustrate you at all? And should fans be frustrated with the fact that he's still in low A after just dominating all season long?
No, not really. That's not for me, at least. He's only 20 years old, drafted out of high school, last year. So, less than, 16 months ago, he was facing high schoolers. Yes, the stuff's elite, but I think that, we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, like a month ago, when he had that really hot streak and he was back-to-back pitchers of the week, yada, yada, yada. And we were talking about maybe he gets bumped up before the end of the season. But at this point, it just got to a point where it's too late. There's no real reason to move up to high A. I don't think you're going to make the jump straight to Double-A at this point as a 20-year-old who didn't play in college. They like to monitor these young pitchers' innings a lot. So it's a little more manageable down at Single-A ball where he can, they have a plan. He's going to pitch 5 innings every game no matter what. And then get out of there. Because last night, or was it last night? Yeah. 5 innings, 9 strikeouts. In a playoff game, you let him keep going. But nope, they had a hard out for him right there. I don't think it's frustrating. I think if we're talking about this early next year and he's dominating at Fredericksburg or Wilmington and they're not bumping him up, maybe, because he'll be 21 at that point. But for right now, this was his first full – remember, he didn't pitch at Single-A last year after the draft. He didn't even pitch in the Florida complex, I don't think. So this was his first season of professional ball. There's no real – he's not making the major leagues for a couple more seasons. There's no real reason to push him at this point. Let him finish his first season of pro ball and then move up. Start kind of really ramping up his progress next year.
You know what? Those are all like great points, but like I like think of it this way. Now, I love Mike Rizzo. Like, I still think he is one of the best executives in all of baseball. In fact, I think he's still one of the most slept on executives in all of baseball. But like, I just keep on thinking of it this way. I'm like, if this was AJ Preller, like, this kid would be in Double-A and knocking on Triple-A. Now, whether that's right or wrong, the Padres have produced a ton of good prospects over the years. So I'm just saying that's my point. They do rush them up, but still.
But if he's also AJ Preller, he's also being shipped off for a piece at the major leagues, next season, and who probably get hurt or they're not going to sign long term. So
yeah,
kind of poison.
He's gonna trade Travis Sykora and all the other top prospects for like Garrett Cole or something for half season, and he'll leave and then trade him or do whatever. So yeah, that's a great point.
I actually prefer Mike Rizzo's methods than AJ Preller's.
I do as well. I'm not an AJ Preller guy. Like I think AJ Preller is like he's a great executive, but like
I mean, if you're a fan, you have to love him because he's at least he's going all in every year.
Yeah, but like then again, it's like all the talent that he kind of puts in the building, he'll just ship out. And it's kind of like, okay, well, you can't really gel with everybody in that clubhouse now. I could be eating my words this year because they kind of seem like a sleeper team in the playoffs and no one's really talking about them, but we'll get into that
at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're pretty decent this year. But Bobby, let's preview tonight in the weekend, the Marlins and the Nats, as of course the Nationals take on the Marlins tonight. It's only their second loss against the Marlins this season. Is that right, Bobby, from last night?
That is correct.
Yep, that is correct. And we got DJ Hers against, this is one of my favorite pitchers, actually, Edward Cabrera. I really love this guy. So we'll get into that preview a little bit later on. But before that, let me tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at PrizePicks. And of course, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and PrizePicks is the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get on the action in most states, including California, Texas, and of course, my home state, Virginia. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive a $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Now, let me tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at FanDuel, and you all know the drill right now. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, but we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Again, just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook, and you can also start your free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket because it is NFL season. You will not want to miss it. Again, just visit FanDuel.com right now. Now we get back into it with Bobby Blanco from NASNsports.com. DJ Hers against Edward Cabrera tonight. And Edward Cabrera is one of those guys, Bobby, where the overall kind of numbers on him indicate that he's not really all that good. But if you look at his last 7 starts, he's got a 2.95 ERA in 39 2/3 innings pitched. He's got 34 strikeouts and 17 walks, a 1.24 whip. And the Marlins are obviously a bad team, but they still find young talent. They still are able to kind of orchestrate pretty solid pitching prospects. And Edward Cabrera has been with the Marlins over the last few seasons. And I do think this guy is really good. Now, here's the good thing for the Nationals is that you've got DJ Hers in the mound, and the Marlins offense stinks, Bobby. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. I mean, this team is 8-2 in 10 games against the Marlins this year, which is a stark turnaround from the past couple of years where it seemed like they could not beat the Marlins for whatever reason. And yeah, I mean, you're not facing Luis Ariz anymore. You're not facing Josh Bell, Brian De La Cruz. None of those guys are there anymore. So this is a young lineup. I mean, it's basically flip-flop in the past couple of years where the Nationals were putting out really young lineups. And I'm not too concerned about the starting pitching this week. We've got DJ tonight,
Corbin tomorrow,
Patrick tomorrow, and Mackenzie Gore on Sunday. I think this is a good opportunity for especially DJ and Mackenzie to kind of get a good jump start because they got some tough opponents coming up. They finished the season facing teams that are either in a playoff spot already or fighting to get back into it. So this is their last quote unquote. I mean, no one's a cakewalk in the majors, but quote unquote cakewalk of the season. Yeah. So I think this is an important start for DJ tonight against a bad lineup. Same with McKenzie on Sunday, but I'm looking more at the offense. We saw last night a guy entering the start with an ERA north of 7, and he held them. He gave up, I think, 3 runs in the first, but then held them scoreless over the next 3 or 4 innings. I think the offense really needs to, figure it out this weekend, get on somewhat of a roll before facing the Mets, the Cubs, the Royals, and the Phillies to end the season, because those are going to be some tough starting pitchers. You don't want guys entering the offseason in a slump or frustrated at the plate. So I'm looking more at the offense this weekend, because I think the starting pitching is going to be able to handle the Marlins' lack of offense pretty well.
Well, let's hope so, Bobby. And Bobby, it is always a pleasure when you jump on Locked On Nationals, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. Always a good time. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. You can catch Bobby Blanco over at massinsports.com and catch him over on Twitter at Bobby_Blanco. And for myself, Ryan Clary, you can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11. Until then, I will see you on Monday. Enjoy some baseball.